Hello, good morning, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us here today. I am really happy to have you here with us. Um, I am going to just set the stage for us here today before we get started and give people a few more minutes of time to join us. And you know what? I'm also realizing I have the wrong file of notes open, so I'm going to pull that up while we talk. The first things that I want to cover off are some housekeeping items that always get asked. So some of these questions are things like, are we recording this webinar? Yes, we are recording this webinar. You will be able to receive the recording after the webinar in a couple of days. So watch for that. The other thing that I would like to cover is that this is on this webinar today, it is almost entirely revenue operations, marketing leadership, sales leadership, roles that are supporting revenue teams. So these are your people. Please take advantage of this opportunity to connect with each other. I encourage you to share your LinkedIn URLs here in the chat. It's a great way for you to grow your network with people that have the same professional interests and business challenges and the joys and frustrations that you have. So please take advantage of that and connect with each other. As you're using the chat, I also would like to take the opportunity to call out another feature on this webinar platform, just in case it's new. If you go down to chat, you will see that next to it or nearby, there's another tab that says Q&A. You are welcome to use either one to ask questions that you have during this webinar. Either one will allow us to see it both backstage and here in the front. Let's see, what else? After this event, if we don't have enough time to get through all the questions that may come up, I will be writing a blog post and sharing that on our website, but also sending it to everyone who's an attendee today. And I'll be sure to answer any questions that didn't get asked in that blog post. All right, now I'm going to start doing introductions, starting with an introduction of Vaughn, and then I will introduce to you our first speaker. So Vaughn is the Claude code for revenue teams. You can think of it in that way. It connects your entire tech stack, your CRM, your call recorder, your emails, your data warehouse, and any other revenue data that you have. And it spends a few days autonomously building a deep context graph of your business. And then from there, any knowledge work or task that you or your team need to take days or sometimes weeks to dive into the data and uncover can get done very quickly. Things like pipeline analysis, forecast prep, building Salesforce workflows, generating QBR decks, things like that. And all of this can happen in natural language in a chat window. The reason that this works so well is that Vaughn can reason across both your structured and unstructured data. It can consider everything like recorded calls and emails and your playbooks, and it can do all of this at scale. So it isn't just querying your data and your systems, it truly can understand your business in a way that a tenured RevOps leader might, and then can execute whatever tasks you give it on that. It's really cool. I'm excited for you to hear about it and other things today. And Jesse and Natalie, our speakers, will be telling you more about how they use something like this as an AI headcount. So now I would like to introduce our first speaker and welcome him to join me here, Jesse Meller. He is the head of global enablement and operations at Canary Technologies, and he is going to share some fun stories with us today around how he has used AI and a RevOps AI headcount to get to insights and data that kind of blew his mind. So I'm excited to hear these stories and have our audience hear them as well. Over to you, Jesse.
Awesome. Yeah, thanks. Thanks so much, Sarah. So we've been using Vaughn now or do you have the slides
Oh
or
yeah, if
those?
you'd like me to share them, I'd be yeah,
Yeah, why not? Just so
yeah.
it's like a guide, like you said.
You
Uh,
go ahead. Keep talking. I'll go grab them and then I'll share my screen.
yeah, thanks so much.
Okay.
So like you mentioned, my name is Jesse Meller. I lead global enablement and go-to-market operations at Canary Technologies. We are a hotel technology company servicing at this point, I think over 20,000 hotels worldwide across a large array of tools in technologies. Uh, Our origin story with Vaughn is a pretty fun one, I guess I could say. My at this point, I don't even think she's like my CSM, like my friend Jesse Sherwood. Like, and anytime there's something new to share with me with our engagement with Rattle, she like bugs me nonstop. It's pretty funny. So for I think for like 2 months, she was chasing me to be like, try Vaughn. Like we just rolled it out. You're gonna love it. You're gonna love it. Um, and I think what she's learned when it comes to anything, my first ask is always like, "What's it gonna cost me, Jess?" And there's always a fun exchange back and forth there. But eventually, I think it was either the end of December or the start of January of this year. Um, we started I got my first license and just started playing around with it, and like that whoa moment for me, like I'll say, and it's kind of weird being in the type of position that I'm in today. I have historically been a laggard when it comes to technology adoption. I'm 34 years old, and I had a boombox with CDs through my freshman year of college, 2010, 2011. Uh, and I've always kind of been of the mindset where it's like we don't need more. We can figure out and we can build and we can create process and whatever. Uh, but just being able to see using a solution like Vaughn, and I know that there are a lot of LLMs out there where it's like you can ask questions and it can, provide insights and answers, but being able at a click of a button plug it into my ecosystem of different technology and data providers and like almost immediately learn my business context using those numbers and going to our co-founder and our technical lead and being like, give me a question. What's a question that keeps you up at night? And being able to provide an insight that has been troubling the product and the data team. Uh, Seeing that it has the ability to do things within other solutions better. We use, I'm not going to smear anything, but we use a call recording solution for sales intelligence. And in one of the stories I'm going to share, I got feedback that Vaughn transcribes and creates insights better on calls than the solution that's actually capturing and recording those calls actually does. And that was for me the moment where I was like, "Whoa, we got something cool on our hands." And that's just kind of been how for the last 3-4 months now at this point, we've not only grown our users, but we've grown in terms of just the number of different use cases and problems that we've been solving for here at Canary. So I think I've got three different and interesting use cases. This is the most recent one. So to provide some background and context, um, I was the first sales ops person at Canary when I was hired almost 4 years ago to the day. And I inherited a system that was like, there was a Salesforce development consulting firm that came in and kind of like built out some workflows. Yes, it does. I can tell you that, Fraser. Uh, so I like being that team of one, and at that time like drastically growing out our company's headcount, going from 6 to 12 account executives and uh 15 to 25 sales development reps over the first 6 months of my tenure. I didn't really have an opportunity to like plug in, take stock of everything, and identify like what has to be completely scrapped and rebuilt. I had to just like, there's a problem. I got to firefight and build on top of the thing that's already been created. And it's kind of been the story of sales ops at Canary over the last 4 years. I eventually was able to bring on an additional resource about 12 months, roughly like July 2023. But we were still in a position where the company was growing so quickly. there were so many new problems and issues that were coming up. We're firefighting nonstop. And we're building on top of existing workflows and automations, and we're trying to plug in all the gaps. I think we did a good job. We now have a sales ops team, of four folks now, including myself. And something that we've been able to do is we've been able to solve a lot more problems and create more comprehensive workflow and automation over even just the last 4 months. But we're still coming across instances where like these workflows and these screen flows are failing. They're causing issues. They're creating delays, and our customers, the salespeople, they get frustrated because they have to go through the workflow all over again. So I sat down with the team actually at the beginning of this month and I said, like, all right, we've got the resources, we've got some tools. We need to conduct a full-on audit of our Salesforce instance and figure out what the heck is going on. Because I've gone through the flows that you've updated and created. I know they're good. I know their work. It doesn't make sense why we're still having so many issues. So my two Salesforce analysts actually used Vaughn to conduct that exercise. I think it took them maybe like not even a day of like querying and pushing back and going back and forth with Vaughn to get an understanding of like what is the status of our current Salesforce instance. Vaughn came back with a comprehensive analysis plus 19-week step-by-step plan for how we address the problem. It identified that we had 71 unique workflows operating at a given time, and a majority of which were referencing the same objects and the same fields. So the problem that we're seeing coming up quite a bit, where the AEs are complaining about having to go through their workflows again, was because when they're updating an opportunity, it triggers 5 or 6 other workflows at the exact same time and causes timeouts. So Vaughn created this analysis and audit and then came up with a plan for us to truncate our workflow roster from 71 to 9. And we actually kicked off that project this week. The 19-week plan was under the assumption it would have one person work on that task. We're going to have 3. So my hope is that we exit no later we exit Q2 with a completely redone, revamped, and much sleeker CRM. And it was like the deck that I got walked through just absolutely blew my mind. It was incredible.
Incredible. Thanks for sharing that one, Jesse. That's awesome.
Yeah, that's a big time lift, not just
Yeah.
in terms of like the work that would have had to be done to go into that audit, but being able to specifically prescribe the plan was pretty incredible.
That's awesome.
Product launch Sidekick. This is the second. And this is when I heard the feedback in regards to Vaughn is able to understand and create insights better than the recording technology that we use that's supposed to do all of that. So we roll out a ton of technology here and solutions here at Canary. I think when I started, we offered 6 solutions to our customers. I'm pretty sure today it's at like 16 or 17,
Oh,
including, and that doesn't include the ones that are in development, that are in beta, in customers' hands right now. So we launched a brand new technology, like really in the hospitality space, first of its kind, for general release in February, our AI voice solution. And it's very exciting. It's a product that we know from our partnerships and conversations we have that a lot of hotels would see a ton of value in being able to leverage. The problem is it is not a problem, but it's definitely our most sophisticated and like technical solution to date that we've brought to the table. And when you're working in the hospitality space or the hospitality tech space, there's a very large spectrum of folks that you're talking to at the individual hotel level, at the management company level, all the way up the enterprise level. And you've got a very wide array of folks, like technical acumen amongst the folks that you're talking to.
Yeah.
So we knew that what the product did was going to be well received, but the questions around how it worked, concerns around like an AI implementation and an AI headcount at the hotel level, even just from like a how does this thing actually work sort of thing, we didn't necessarily know how much, like how often we would be peppered with these types of questions or objections, or what the reaction is for folks who are learning about this for the first time.
Mhm.
So this was our first instance, and now it's become standard practice within a couple of months where for all of our new product launches, we queue up a Vaughn analysis. For the first month, it's a daily analysis on every single meeting that occurs about that new product.
Yeah.
What was the overall sentiment of the conversation? What were the key objections? What were the question, like not necessarily objections, but questions that were asked? What happened on the pricing conversation specifically? And what was like the overall, I guess, like sentiment and predictive outcome of the call and any next steps? It helped us refine our script and our process for selling within just a couple of days, seeing specific questions that we didn't necessarily plan for or have fully baked handles for. And then also getting that insight. What are the types of brands that are being more receptive to this? What types of hotels? What's happening on the group conversation versus the hotel conversation? So we did that every day for about a month. Now it's a weekly report that I send out to the team. Vaughn sends me that report in my inbox every Monday. And we've got every executive in that thread, our solutions engineer, the product manager, and it's providing just really incredible real-time insight on how this product is being received by the market to help us make sure that we were on message. We actually hit the nail on the head with what we thought we were going to bring to the table. And yeah, like I said, it's going to be a standard procedure for every new product we roll out to create this this launch sidekick.
That's great to hear. That is one of my favorite parts of using Vaughn myself is being able to have access to how the product is being used for real and how not just the initial sales conversations are happening, but how the onboarding conversations are going and how users are using the product. It really can make that quick access to that data make the job far easier for marketers and sellers. So that's a wonderful use case of something that I didn't realize how valuable it would be until I had it in my hands. So thanks for
Yeah,
that. Nancy.
pretty incredible. Okay. I have been at this point, it's kind of like not explicitly told, but like I've been told by Sahil, I'm not allowed to talk about Vaughn if unless I talk about Taylor Swift. Um, so we're a hotel technology company. There is a huge event happening in the United States this summer, the World Cup. It's across a number of different cities. You've got folks traveling in, presumably from all over the world, to either just watch the beautiful game or to see their home nation compete for the ultimate prize. So as we're we had a conversation, I think on the sales side, maybe like first week of February, and somebody mentioned like we should think about a World Cup campaign in some capacity. We knew exactly what solutions would probably anchor best far around a talk track and a pitch, and maybe even a discount around the World Cup. But I wanted to get real data that we could bring to the table as well. So I thought to myself, what is an event that's happened in the United States that would be comparable to the World Cup? Now, being the good husband that I am, I have adopted Taylor Swift as one of my favorite musicians. She's fantastic. I can't debate it. But the Eras Tour was the immediate thing that came to my mind because I also remember reading articles about the impact that her tour had specifically on the hospitality industry. I think it was like all hotels within like a 5 mile radius of her show, like where the venue was, saw minimum 90% occupancy over the course of every single weekend that she performed there, which like are incredibly high occupancy rates for any hotel. And in a lot of instances, like 100. So what I wanted to do is I wanted to get an understanding of what happened to our customers that were using our solutions, our guest-facing solutions specifically, when the Eras Tour came to town? And how can we then use that information to leverage in these talk tracks something specific? Like, hey, we know that when you use a solution like ours during this type of event, you're going to see X percentage increase. Problem is we've got product data in one place. We've got our customer data in another place. And then it's also like, how do I cross-reference every hotel that was in a city and a customer of ours at the time that the Eras Tour came to that city? Enter Vaughn. So I gave Vaughn that exact question. I want to know customers using these two technologies at the time the Eras Tour came to town. What did they see in terms of percentage increase in usage and revenue during that weekend compared to the other 51 weekends in the year? Vaughn was able to pull a list of 314 hotels by city, by product, and not only show the percentage increases, but then give me the accumulate of 50% increase in guest interaction through our messaging solution and a 35% increase in average upsell revenue generated per weekend when the Eras Tour was in town. There you have our World Cup script and go-to-market campaign with just a couple of sentences.
That is so cool, Jesse. I love that. I really love that story. That's a really fun one. All right, just one last couple minutes or a minute or so maybe to tell us what do you see next for Canary with Vaughn?
Yeah, I mean, I think first and foremost, it's getting it out to as many people as possible on my team. I think I've added like maybe 4 or 5 more licenses, maybe even more in the last month alone. People like actively coming to me asking for it, doing sessions with them to answer questions, to solve problems, to like create data correlates that we probably didn't have the ability to do using disparate systems. And then I think it's really a matter of like using Vaughn the way that it was promised is like this is our AI headcount. This is our guy that we can use across any given segment, any given team to answer specific questions that can help us start solving problems. Whether
Yeah.
it's from a performance management issue, we're working on being able to draw potential correlates between product and implementation timeline to predict churn. That's a query that's actively going on right now. How to best prepare for a specific call and putting that into Salesforce. Vaughn is helping me create like sabermetrics for salespeople and create scores as far as how does their performance relate to what they should be doing based on historical company and rep data. So it really is like we're going to plug it, like we don't have to plug it in anywhere because it is integrated with all of our systems, and just having it be that sidekick to every single person and every single team that has complex questions that they don't necessarily have access to the appropriate tools or the context and understanding of those different tools on how to leverage them appropriately, and having Vaughn service up those insights and recommendations in like a very easy and digestible fashion.
Fantastic. Thank you, Jesse.
Yeah, thank you.
All right, now I would love to invite our second speaker to the stage. Natalie, thank you so much for being here. Natalie is from 15Five, and she is the VP of Go-to-Market Strategy and Operations. So Natalie, I'll hand it over to you to talk about some of the ways that you've been using an AI headcount in your business.
Perfect. Thanks so much for having me, Sarah. I'm excited to be here with everyone. It was really fun hearing Jesse's use cases. I wrote down a couple that I want to take back to my team. I was like in the middle of wanting to Slack one of my RevOps managers to say, hey, we need to do that systems audit right now. So
So
um,
cool.
I am the VP of GTM Strategy and Operations here at 15Five. And really what that means is I oversee several of our GTM departments. And so I oversee marketing, sales dev, revenue operations, data, and enablement. And I want to talk a little bit just about how we're using Vaughn. And so the first thing is kind of our landscape. And so we have Vaughn plugged into Salesforce, Gong, Zendesk, and now Snowflake as well. We really started with a small team. So I think I started with about 5 leaders seeing Vaughn. I first got into Vaughn, tested it with a couple of questions, immediately kind of saw the power of Vaughn. I had been using ChatGPT on my own to do some analysis, and I remember just thinking like, gosh, I wish I could plug ChatGPT into Salesforce, but I know legal and IT are not going to let me do that. And so when I heard about Vaughn, I was like, ooh, this sounds like what I've been hoping for. And we have clearance and safety and security to be able to plug into everything we needed. And I got 5 additional leaders to come in, our product management leader, our account management leader. They quickly were like, I need my teams in these systems. So we've now spread across, I think I started with 5 licenses. I thought we'd have 20. I think we're at 40 people when I counted today using Vaughn in our team across account management, customer experience, sales, our marketing team, product marketing, RevOps, and enablement. Our first area that we went to, so our first use case, when I'm looking for efficiency and like how can I make the biggest impact in our teams right now for our company, that's around retention and adoption. And so getting our customer experience and our account management team into Vaughn was my first use case. And so kind of some of those things that Jesse was just saying they're going to be moving to were some of our first use cases. So we have a use case around customer health and renewal intelligence, where we're looking at the data across our product usage, our usage cohorts, our Zendesk tickets, conversations to really surface those at-risk renewals before the renewals happen, really giving our customer experience managers and our account managers a clear picture of what's happening. It's really great because even going into Q2, I did a quick query in Vaughn and said, hey, look at all of our customers who are up for renewal in Q2, identify any of our customers who have lower than our expected usage threshold, listen to their calls, look at their tickets, and give us kind of a save plan for each of these accounts. I looked at that. My account manager already had the exact same query prepped as well, so that she could do it with the team. And then it allows me, as we're talking through our forecast for what we think our renewals are going to be, to really have something that justifies and gives me some ability to understand, like, are we being a little conservative on our forecast? Are we possibly not actually going after the right areas to save renewals, and really be able to push the team a little further with that research. In addition, the team is doing full account prep documents. I should give a call out that Vaughn also created this sales deck. So if you want to know what kind of documents Vaughn can do, this is what that looks like. And so they have a command to do account prep documents, where before they'll put in a command that says, like, look at my customer accounts for this day or for this week, and give me an account prep of that customer. What's their adoption? Who are the stakeholders? Any recent tickets? And so they're really going in with better conversations with their customers, where previously some of those conversations are had by different teams. It could be our support team, it could be our onboarding team. And so the account manager doesn't have that insight. This is bringing it directly to their fingertips.
Awesome.
Lastly, we're trying something new right now. We're still working through this one, but I still want to call it out because it's a really great use case. We are currently on a strategy shift within our company where we have multiple new features that we are shipping, and we're doing it so fast that sometimes we have that disconnect between we shipped a feature and a customer actually had that pain point in the past. Do they know that we shipped the feature? And so we're
Right.
doing this closed loop product feedback where we're having Vaughn search Gong, emails, Zendesk tickets to really understand, hey, did this customer ever have a complaint about a certain feature? And have we released a feature that could solve that problem so that we can ensure that we're actually having those conversations and bringing those features to the customers who wanted them and needed them most?
I love those kinds of use cases. That to me is one of the biggest power use cases that, or examples of a power use case that what Vaughn can do, because this is information that would have been almost impossible to get before. It would have taken way too much time for any person to go and do all that work, right? That's
Yeah, and I think the thing that actually excites me the most about it isn't not necessarily, of course, I'm excited by the fact that we can get all the data, we can have these documents prepared for us, we can have these outreach lists built for us. But really what's happening is it's empowering the team, right? Like my account management team, my customer experience team, my onboarding team are in Vaughn themselves doing this. And so they're not questioning the data. When I'm the one doing it and pulling the list and giving them a list and say, hey, I did this analysis. Here are your customers you need to reach out to for XYZ. There's always this question of like, well, where'd you get the data from? And did you look at it the way that I would have looked at it? And like, how do we get there? But they can't actually do that analysis themselves either. This is empowering them
right.
that they can. And then
Yeah.
they don't question the data because they're the one who played around with the query. They're the ones who asked additional questions on the data. And so they really feel confident going in and using it.
Beautiful use case. Thank you.
Yeah, I also want to share just an example prompt. I'm not going to go over all of this specifically, but this is a prompt that has been turned into a command. A command is something that can be usable across people so that one person doesn't have to remember that prompt. That our onboarding team is using to create their own post-sales handoff documents. This is another area of that empowerment. I can't tell you how many systems or times my team has created a post-sales handoff document and the team goes, well, it's not exactly what we wanted, or it doesn't get us exactly what we need. I actually think this is exactly what we've built in the past, but now they have belief in this because they built it. They were empowered to do it, and it's providing a full document to them for post-sales handoff, and they're actually using that now as well to ensure that it's driving that onboarding conversation and their kickoff deck for that customer. So the customer really feels like that onboarding manager now understands everything that happened pre-sales.
Yeah. Makes sense.
In our sales team, I will say our sales team, I don't have a ton of my sales ICs in Vaughn just yet. Anyone who is in RevOps likely knows like sometimes sales engagement with tools can be a little harder. They're salespeople, but I use it more on a strategic deal intelligence level. And so using it to understand our deal insights, our win-loss analysis, competitive intelligence as well. And so these are a couple of example prompts that I've used in Vaughn that's really helped me, one, determine, again, confidence in forecasts, help us with some post, post-sales loss mortem calls, as well as really understand if we're providing our team with the right resources in the sales cycle. So we've looked at things where where we're top two vendor of choice. And if there are any obstacles or challenges to the deal that aren't obvious. Running that prompt has helped to showcase things like we don't have the true economic buyer. Hey, there was some hedging when this conversation on this feature was brought up. We probably need to do a deep dive in a sandbox on that feature because it's a top priority. So really help to pull out a couple of things that may have gotten missed in that deal.
Yeah.
I've also heard a lot of things about our pricing model, how it compares to other competitors. And a lot of times from salespeople, it feels like that's anecdotal. And so I did a prompt to ask it to look at all of our calls over a certain period, listen to what the prospects are saying, help us understand how our pricing is being compared to competitors and where it's impacting our sales cycle. This one was really helpful because it did highlight for us how our customers view some of our packaging compared to our competitors' packaging, where internally we think they are very different. And we're hearing our customers are saying, we're having a hard time understanding how they're different. And so this has sparked us having a full conversation on our pricing and packaging model, and is going to help to make some better decisions there.
Oh, that's great.
And then lastly, oh, go ahead, Sarah.
I would say I love examples where Vaughn is able to push all of us to think differently about how a call or a conversation went when we might think, oh, that was wonderful, it was perfect. But it can say, but did you hear this hesitation? But did you notice that it's not necessarily a champion? It's those are the kinds of things that I have found to be very, very helpful. So our preconceived ideas can get questioned and we can still override it. We're the humans, right? But it helps us to not be stuck in with happy goggles on, which I love.
Absolutely, which is the hardest thing as well too. And I will also say, as a RevOps professional, many times we want to understand and hear from the sales team on those anecdotes, but you always question like, was that just from the most recent call that you heard? And so now not only do you have those like happy ears on, but then also the most recent call is the one that's right in your mind. Like, is it repeatable across a span of calls? And so something querying all calls in a certain period definitely helps to take out that bias as well.
Fantastic. Thanks.
To that same one, another one that I like is when I'm doing postmortems and looking at why we lost the deal. Many times we hear a lot of like, "Hey, it's this product feature, it was this benefit that we didn't win the deal on." And so I'm having Vaughn look at those deals and say, "Hey, tell us all the product feature gaps we had, and also tell us some of the behavior points that could have contributed to the loss of the deal," so that you can hear both. It's really hard to have a sales rep try to view themselves on like where they could have been better within the deal. And so this kind of takes some of that bias out, but gives both points of views. Here's where the product features actually were part of the issue. Here's where we could have been stronger in our sales cycle.
Awesome.
In marketing and enablement, we're looking at attribution, conversion, our content. This one is one of the most exciting ones for me because in our attribution model, in our campaigns, when we're trying to look at where did these leads actually come from and what drove the pipeline, there are so many objects that we have even just in Salesforce to look at this. And then you run up against object limits, like you can look up to that object, but you can't look down to it. You need to build a joint report, just so much time to try to get all the data. But Vaughn can query all of that alone for you. And so that's what I really love here. I'm able to say, hey, look at a report of our pipeline, identify what campaigns help drive that, where the UTMs are, and really measure from MQL to our what we call a sales qualified lead to what drives revenue to help to understand what campaigns we should continue to pour our resources into and which ones we may need to divest from.
Yeah.
This enablement use case was one that was really fun as well too. So my enablement manager had an enablement session that they were going to be doing with our customer experience team about product strategy. So where are our customers having issues with configurations in our product to meet the strategy and the goals that they want to accomplish? What we wanted to teach our team was more discovery during those conversations instead of going straight into the technical of like, okay, how do we set up exactly what you want to set up in the system? Do a little bit of discovery to understand what are they actually having challenges with? Is there a different way to accomplish their goal? Is there a better way to actually set up our product for them to reach their outcomes and their goals? But my enablement manager was hitting a bit of a blocker. He needed to understand what the most common configuration strategy issues were from the management team. And he was just like, hey, I know they want us to do this, but I need these lists of configuration issues. I haven't gotten it from them yet. And it just immediately clicked to me, well, go ask Vaughn, right? Like, can we take out the middleman? And so I'm like, well, go run that prompt in Vaughn, see what it tells you. And while you're at it, ask it to tell you if there's some specific questions that are best for each one of these conversations as well too.
Right.
He was able to get a full list of most common configuration strategy issues around different cohorts of customers, what best discovery questions might help solve those problems, and then present that to the managers to get them to say whether or not those were the right things that he should enable the team on. And there was a lot of just ability for them to see, yes, these were all the right things. That again built that confidence in using Vaughn. And I think maybe a couple of things that they wanted some changes to. But that really helped this blocker where managers probably were too busy to put up that list for him and would have spent time after hours trying to do that while he was being blocked actually setting up the enablement course, and probably would have been late to his goal as well too, and spent
Yeah.
hours after hours putting together his decks. And this just completely removed that obstacle for us.
That is another great use of Vaughn, because since Vaughn has the knowledge of the business, it is able to produce those kinds of lists and information for us. So, and those managers in your example, they may not have even been able to pull from their head as complete of a list because that is not their primary job. But all of us as humans, we do so well when we can react to something and say, not important, yes, important. And then the conversation can be actually much, much more valuable, right? And get to the end goal so much faster. It's a fantastic way to use Mon. Really cool.
Absolutely. Okay, I want to share one last use case. Um,
Yes.
these aren't standard analysis that we do all the time, but they do happen at certain times throughout the year, which is territory planning. And so at the end of a quarter or at the end of the year, we may be doing some territory planning, shuffling and looking at do we have the right books of business created? Can our pipeline actually feed our teams? And that usually can take me honestly weeks to put together, especially if we're looking at shifting strategy. In this case, at the end of last year, we were looking to shift our strategy and add in more SMB into our sales funnel. And then I also, at the same time as we were adding SMB in, really wanted to ensure that we had specific sales reps who would work SMB deals and that we didn't confuse our more enterprise sales teams with getting SMB leads. I knew that I needed to really spread that pipeline across multiple people and that I wanted some reps in SMB, some in mid-market, some in enterprise, and really move that around. And so what I asked Vaughn to do was to look at our pipeline over the past year and think about how much pipeline from each segment I could route to each AE. I told it exactly how many AEs I had in total, how many AEs I wanted in each pod, and had it think through the weights for each rep in that segment. What this helped do for me was one, understand whether or not we truly had the pipeline to support adding in this SMB segment, which it told me very quickly that we did. And then also helped me understand where I should make the different segments. So originally I had different segments in place. Through some conversation with Vaughn, we ended up landing on different segmentation for our employee counts based off of how the pipeline was coming in. And then lastly, it really helped me understand where I had where our pipeline coverage was compared to our quota. So as I started to do that, I went, okay, well, now you're showing me exactly how much pipeline we have in these different segments, how many opportunities each rep will get. Now I'm going to tell you a little bit about the quotas that we're assigning to these reps and like how is their pipeline coverage going to be in the next year based on the quotas that we set to really help give me confidence that we were setting our quotas well, that they were achievable and maybe stretched, but also not so far stretched that we were going to be in a large issue with attainment to our goals. So that was a really fun one that would have taken me several weeks to do that I was able to do in a couple of days.
Awesome. And you can do it whenever you need it again.
And
Which
I
is
can do it whenever I need it again.
yeah.
Oh, you know what? I'm going to just do one other Vaughn plug there when you said that. These segments that we then discussed aren't actually in my data set yet. So I have a field in my data set about company segments. They are not the exact same employee counts as these new segments that we set. But Vaughn now knows my new segment. So anytime I ask it about an SMB segment or a mid-market segment, it's pulling the new segment that it now knows because it has it in our org memory that that's what I mean when I say mid-market or SMB.
Yeah. Oh, another great feature I love. All right, thank you, Natalie. I know we're almost out of time here, but I'm going to invite Sahil, our CEO, and Jesse to come back to the stage here. I know that we are already at time, but I also know that some people may not have to run to a meeting immediately. So I'm going to suggest that let's go ahead and have some Q&A and just a little bit of a chat here. Nothing bad happens if people need to leave because we are recording this, and I will be making that blog post for people who just want to catch up on what got missed. So let's go ahead and spend maybe 6-7 minutes on just a little chat here to pull all the pieces together. Thank you, Sahil, for joining us, by the way. Everyone, this is Sahil, our CEO and co-founder.
Thanks, Sarah. And Jesse and Natalie, so many amazing use cases. And it feels like whenever I jump on any customer conversation, my mind is expanded because we thought we were building one as a general purpose tool, but not the generalities it has expanding to day after day. And these use cases are now in probably hundreds, if not moving towards thousands. The question that I have for you, anyone who's listening to this, um, let's put you guys both into a frame of mind that you're talking to a friend and you are telling your friend the same things that you told this audience today, which is like, Vaughn is amazing. I use it for everything. My teams are asking for it. But your friend says, let's say Natalie, I'm just so tired of all these AI platforms. I bought this AI platform last year and it didn't really do anything. It didn't move the needle. I go to conferences and every vendor sounds the same. And every vendor says connect all your data and magic will happen. So now my CEO is pushing me to use Claude Code or Claude Cowork, and that is what I'm doing. What do you tell that friend at a bar?
Yeah, I love this question. And honestly, like I feel like I'm very AI forward and my company is very AI forward, but it didn't always start that way for me personally. It took a second for me to go, okay, we're being asked to use AI. What does that actually mean? And what can I use AI for? And so, as I mentioned to you, I was using AI in ChatGPT. And I quickly saw that, like, there's certain things I can connect it to, but am I actually going to get clearance to connect it to everything? At that time, the answer was likely no. But I think the thing I would say the most is everything does have AI built in it in today's world. And very soon, I believe we won't even be talking about the fact that you have an AI feature as a benefit. It's going to be an expectation. I expect that every tool that I have is going to have some type of AI feature. But the difference is like, but why does it have that AI feature? Does it have that AI feature just built on simply because they needed to have an AI feature? And did they actually put everything into building out this AI feature for the use case and the people that need to use it? I can run these same prompts in ChatGPT. Of course I can. But does ChatGPT actually know how to, and sorry that I'm calling out a name, an LLM, know how to respond to that in the way that I, as a revenue operations professional, would respond to it? And can someone who does not have the knowledge that I have run a prompt and get an answer that actually helps them understand their answer? The answer to that is typically no. The difference with Vaughn is it was built understanding sales. Like sometimes I think Vaughn can answer a question like an enablement professional. So I feel very comfortable having my team go out and ask that question because I've seen how it's answering and how it's responding to the analysis. So I think that's the main thing you have to think about is like, why did they create AI in the first place, and who did they create it for to determine if it's going to fit your needs?
Love that. Jesse.
Yeah, I mean, I think Natalie hit the nail on the head there. The way that the way that I would think about expressing this is just kind of like, you know, that myth where it's like you only use 10% of your brain. Now, like if I'm thinking about like a normal human being, they're sitting at their desk, they're obviously focused on their work, but they still have so many other things going on in their life that can distract or take away their brain power. Like the way that I would describe Vaughn is it allows me when I am working, it allows me to not only be focused, but it really allows me to unlock every percentage point of my brain that maybe isn't totally focused or there when I'm doing work, to deliver the best possible product or outcome. Like using another LLM, like you mentioned Claude. We use Claude here, and it's really, really cool. And I talk to people internally when they're asking questions about Vaughn. It's like, hey, like Vaughn took what's being done on those LLMs, and it's using that logic, and it's building you something that's really specific for your organization. Um, and like, I guess, yeah, you can do that with these other LLMs, but you've got to create the API app manager in all of the different applications. It's going to cost you a ton of money in API calls. And like, quite frankly, why do it when you've got a resource that already does it and probably better? Um, I love that I have the ability to ask questions that I genuinely don't know the answer to because I don't have enough of the context on one side of the business, or I don't have the same acumen with one of the tools that we're using that I've plugged Vaughn into. I can get the full picture on everything using my good pal Vaughn. And that's like, I think the value in that is just off the charts.
Yeah, I love that you got that realization. A lot of people, because everyone is so skeptic of AI and AI vendors, which I understand, like my peers are a lot of part of the problems here, and maybe I am included in that. But what I also tell people is that just try it. Just try it with everything else that you have going on. We offer a free trial. We were going to stop free trial starting April, but I was like, dude, like nobody's gonna believe me. So I will just say, just try it for free, and you will see the difference between a journal purpose model versus a model, the same model trained on your business that can then do any use case.
Yeah.
But I know that we have limited time here. I actually want to talk about two things if we can. I'm looking at my watch. So the second thing I want to talk to you about was, Natalie, something that you mentioned, which is when people build their own analysis, they're more likely to use it versus when it's pushed as a top-down initiative from RevOps. I am a big believer in that. If you look at my LinkedIn, I have been saying this for the last, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, is these general purpose recommendations that are top-down, they never get adopted because of that. So how did you come to that realization? Was it deliberate? Was it accidental? And how have you seen this play out?
Yeah, that's such a great question. No, I'm gonna knock on myself for a while. I'm just like that person who's stubborn and I'm like, why aren't you doing what I told you to do? Because I know what I told you to do is right, you know?
Yeah.
So it's like I didn't come to it intentionally. I stumbled upon it. I think the first time I ever stumbled upon it was just when I put out a process and someone was like, we don't really want to follow that process. And I did an interview with the team and asked why they didn't want to follow the process and let them explain to me their process. And I realized we were saying the same thing, just differently. Like we're saying the same thing. So then if I agree to the way that you said it, then you'll adopt it. And so I'm like, okay, ego away. Yeah, that right. Yep, yep. Go ahead. Okay, that we'll build that process. And then went back to the room and was like, okay, I think we have to make one change to this process, but then tell them that it's their process and then they'll adopt it, right? And so like
Yeah.
in my early revenue operation days, that's what I realized. And so like with Vaughn, I kind of mentioned this before, but I got comfortable when I asked a couple questions first. So I asked it a couple questions first, saw how it responded. That's the other thing I don't think we talked about here, but like it shows you the full query as well. And sometimes that's too much information to look at, but it's great that it's there because you just go and like, did you actually look at the right call? Oh yeah, okay, you did. What was actually said right there? Okay, did you look at the right abject? Did you look at the right fields? That helped me get that confidence. And so once the team started to utilize it, and then ask for it more. That's when I was like, ooh, they're feeling empowered. And so every now and then I just have to do a double check to make sure that like, are they actually getting the right information, right? Like we did have an area where one of my marketing teammates were like, hey, can we feed in the right like brand colors and fonts into Vaughn because people are using decks and now it's not on in our company. But you ensure that you're watching over that. But when people feel empowered to do this, they're doing it on their own. Like I didn't even ask the team to create a post sales handoff deck. I didn't even learn until a little bit later that they were creating these account meeting prep docs, all things that we've tried so many times to get adopted across the team that they're adopting because they're the ones who realized that they needed it and they trusted what they got.
That's so amazing. And yeah, it's funny that you said it was not intentional, but now that you've gotten to that point. Last question, Jesse, this is for you. You and I were at a dinner in New York a month ago. It feels like ages ago at this stage. And you said something which is that you have been so accustomed to going into Salesforce at the beginning of the day. Uh, and now like you are rethinking that. um I want you to talk about that, and also like Mark Benioff just said headless 360. Did you see that? Where
I
so
didn't know.
yeah, which is like Mark Benioff is now opening up the Salesforce platform and saying like it's headless. We are making Salesforce headless. So I think you got to that realization a few months before even Mark Benioff did. But talk to everyone about that.
Can I get paid like him?
Yeah. Yes. Yes. You will also get a massive compound in Hawaii.
I'll take a percentage.
Yeah.
Yeah, so yeah, it's funny, and I think like the dual factor authentication, it like helped me get to that realization pretty quickly, where it's like, huh, I I haven't gone into my phone to get the code, and like in my past life, yeah, it's like the first thing I do is I like 8 a.m. I open up Salesforce, I go to my dashboards, and like I'm doing everything that I need to do. Um, and it's been happening later and later and later in the day. Um, I think by habit, I'll always want to try and like build the thing in the place that I like grew up in, being
Yeah.
Salesforce as the CRM, and pulling reports and whatever. But Vaughn is better than me at doing that.
Mm.
Vaughn is faster than me at doing that. And especially in this day and age, and now, my organization, it doesn't just service sales, it services our entire go-to-market function. We we're screwing around with Zendesk and support cases right now, and linking them and like filling in the gaps in the like the data that's getting put in so that we can attribute certain cases to accounts or whatever. Like we're using all of these different tools for different things, and while we try and feed it back into Salesforce, listen, when you're asking adult human beings to do a process, you should never anticipate that they're going to do it 100% perfectly. It's
Yeah.
like it's the cross we bear in the space that we work in, Natalie and I. So Vaughn can not only take all of that data that's in different places and put it in one place, it does it in a manner where it's conversational. It can create a dashboard. It can just create like an analysis. It can create a PDF. It can create a deck.
Yeah.
It's better.
Yeah.
There's nothing else that I could say to that. So I can get all of my information plus without having to log into Salesforce at 8 a.m.
Awesome.
Sorry, Ohana. It's them's the breaks.
All right, I'm gonna have to end us here, though I wish we had another half hour to just keep going. I think we would have some fun. But thank you all for being here. I know many people in our audience had to leave, so I'll be sure to send them this final clip. Those of you that are still here, thank you, and I'll be sure to follow up with you after. Natalie, thank you for your presentation. Really enjoyed it. Jesse, thank you for the time that you spent prepping and thinking about what you're going to share, and for your Taylor Swift story, which always just delights Sahil. And Sahil, thank you for joining me on those. I love to have you here. Your questions are always very thoughtful. So thank you. All right, everybody, have a
Thank
great
you.
day.
Bye.
Bye.